If this is Monday, this must be the Unapologetic Amateur Looking for Experts with Ruby Williams Shivers. This program is brought to you by Ruby Williams Shivers, who's creator, also the host of the program, Sheila Brown Bird, who is the producer, Norm Bradley, who is the studio owner and engineer, our consultants, Lula Salvador and Juanine McClure, and your host today, Terry Benjamin. I have a special guest with me today, and we're going to be speaking about many things, a lot of things related to poetry and the spoken word. So I invite you, the villagers, to come on. This is the last show before the new year. So I hope that you are looking forward to the new year, that you have some plans, that you're going to execute, some things that you said that you have been planning to do, but I think now is the time to do that because we don't know how much time we have in this particular world. And I like to begin by just throwing out some thoughts, and we're going to have a conversation. Me and my guest here, I'll introduce in a few minutes, and we're going to ask you to join in the conversation. Now, I can't hear you, but I can feel your energy. I can feel what you're giving to me, It's so funny, but when I was like 16, 17, and coming into high school, I often wondered what I would look like when I became an old man. And now I know. It's no longer a mystery, okay? This is me. This is me at 74, But I find it a privilege. I find it something that, I'm going to make the most of because I found that you really... there's no stopping when you have a plan, when you know what you want to do. So what I like to do is bring in my guest, is a gentleman named Ronald C. McCrae, and he's a poet. He has a few books out. He's going to share some poetic expressions with us. And toward the end of the program, I have a special announcement that I'm going to share with you involving me and this young man right here. But what I want to do, I want to begin, Ron, with you. And my question to you is, what would you tell your younger self, looking back? What would you say to your younger self?
It's interesting, and I often hear that on a regular basis.
Yeah, right.
What would you tell yourself, your younger self, when you look back? Mm-hmm. Well, I like to switch that up a little bit, if I may.
Of course.
Yes. In today, the present time, in my 70s, mm-hmm. I would tell myself now, if 20 or 30 years from now, which in essence is the exact same thing, mm-hmm. what will I say to me now, years later?
Yes.
Well, I would look at it that it's not a if I woulda, shoulda, coulda that so many does.
That's right.
If I woulda, shoulda, coulda. Mm-hmm. But what are you doing now to remember what I have done and what I am doing to look forward so when that time comes and I lose my mind, I don't have to worry about...
But you won't know.
Then I don't have to worry about if I shoulda, woulda, coulda. But my legacy will speak for itself. Those who will read my story look back in their present time and says, this is who he was. This is my father, my grandfather. Yeah. And it's interesting what he had done in his past.
Yes, they deserve to die, and I hope they burn in hell.
That's what's important. So again, to look back in my younger self, looking at myself now, years in my future that has not yet come, I will say to myself, looking back, I thank myself for doing what I desired to do, what came to mind to do it, and I have done it.
That's a beautiful thing, and again, as I look back on my youth, the thing I would tell my younger self is don't be afraid to do it. Don't be afraid to go out there. And the most important thing that I found out, and I'm glad I found this out early, don't look for validation from others, okay? You don't need anybody's validation. When I was 9 years old, I told Mom I want to be a writer. And I had no idea what the hell I was talking about because I just knew I liked to read. And I figured, well, maybe I could write someday. But I told my mom, I said, I want to be a writer. And she said, go ahead, baby. And she didn't know what she was talking about, But I realized that because I said that, I validated myself. And so I gave myself permission to do all the reading and writing that I can. And I like to start the program here with a poem from a collection by a friend of mine. His name is Wade Hudson. And the name of the book is Journey Poems. And he has a poem here, which is the message to our young. And it says here, there is hope, no need to despair. Take up your cause with determination and care. Others have gone before, look what they have done. No, it wasn't easy. No race is easy to run. Harriet Tubman's tenacity, Frederick Douglass's flair, Martin King's powerful words, Barack Obama's dare. Carry the baton of freedom, help the freedom train to run. You can help power the engine too. Your turn has just begun. And I think what he's saying here is that, young people, we're counting on you. We're looking for you to sort of carry the baton. We pass the baton to you, and you go that other step further. So what do you think about that particular poem, Ron? Does that speak to you in any kind of way?
Oh, absolutely. Matter of fact, actually the one, even at the title of the book, The Journey. That's and right. The journey is interesting because the journey tells a story. Mm-hmm. And the only story that it can tell is your story. Mm-hmm. But the only way it tells your story is that you have journeyed. That's right. Where did you come from?
You traveled, yeah.
What did you experience? Mm-hmm. What was told to you? What was said to you? What did you learn from it? And so that's where the title in itself, a journey, the journey of your life, where you come. How do you pass something on if you never travel any place or come from some place to express to somebody, even a younger one, as you indicated when you were young? Yeah. You said you want to be a writer.
That's right.
But that's when you was young. Yeah. But you're still young.
right.
And you're still writing.
That's right.
And, and that's what's important, too, on a journey. Yeah. Where you never stop. No matter how you look at it, you never stop because we are continuing to be on a journey.
Yeah. That's a beautiful thing. And again, like I said, like youth and age is like I said, it's the same coin, okay, different sides. And this is another poem from the book Journey Poems by Wade Hudson. And I want to read this. Now we talked about youth, now let's talk about aging. And this poem is entitled Aging. And it says here, have you ever wondered how time operates? I'm not trying to be funny. I'm serious. I was minding my own business, doing my own thing, and time just snatched me up and took me with it to some distant sphere. And when I opened my eyes, gray hair, a paunchy middle, and aching bones were now my friends. Someone said time comes like a thief in the night. Another said it sneaks up on you like a stone-cold criminal. Well, maybe that's all true, but I've come to realize that time does what it's supposed to do. It keeps on coming. Like Sterling Brown, strong men, it keeps on coming. And that's a funny thing, man, because I find sometimes when you get older, man, you have pains in different places. I remember I woke up one morning, I had a pain in my ankle. Now, I know I hadn't kicked nobody in bed, or twisted my ankle, but I had that pain that I never had before. But I realized that as you get older, things happen. I think one of the blessings of aging is the fact that you understand that life changes, and you have to change. I mean, I had to change my diet. Yeah. I had to change the fact that, my bedtime. My bedtime is really between 9 and 10. Mm-hmm. Now, I try to push it, but it doesn't work out. Because I'm thinking, I'm an adult. I should be able to stay up later. I mean, come on now. And but it doesn't work out the way. But I find for myself that, in terms of what we do, it takes energy to write poems. It takes energy to write anything because, again, that's where your passion comes out. And the better you take care of yourself, the more energy that you have, and the more energy you have, the more you can pursue your passion.
And it's interesting because you're right. And the energy that you have comes from the time that has been given to you.
Yes.
You take the time to think about who you are, what you want to do, what you are about. Mm-hmm. But the only way you can do anything is what are you thinking? Do you think? How do you think? And what do you think about?
Yes.
And so if you utilize the opportunity of what you have, that gift, which is thinking, then you could put in perspective various thoughts. Now, nothing comes out straight and narrow.
No, it doesn't.
But it comes with pieces that you put together that you formulate something after going through a whole lot of your pieces, and once you put all those things together, which takes time.
That's right.
And the time that is allotted to you is the time that you put it into your thinking. So that's what's important, utilizing your thoughts.
That's right. Yeah. And the thing is that one of the things about being an artist, whether you be a poet, a writer, or anything, sometimes you never know what you're going to be writing. Like I said, I've been writing since I was 9 years old. I'm in my 70s now, and I still have new ideas based on my experience, based on what I'm reading and whatnot. And basically, for the past maybe 4 or 5 shows, I've been holding it down, with the grace of Queen Ruby Shivers, who let me continue our program. And when I had guests come on, the first question I would ask the guests is, where do we go from here? And I'm asking you that question. And when I say that, in light of what's been going on in the past year, the fact that we thought we would have a first female president, it didn't happen, a lot of things. But we can't stop. Right. We can't stop. We can't lay down and die. And so my question to you, my brother, is where do we go from here?
And it's interesting, and that's right on point, because it's one of the pieces I wrote a few years back, and it's titled, and I like to read some of it. Where do we go from here?
Yes.
And that's what's important, because again, as we were just talking about, you're thinking the time that you have, and too many ponder over nothing, asking themselves, what do I do? Where do I go from here? So let me read this.
Okay.
Where do I go from here? Confusion has distorted my decision to unfold my whereabouts. Where do I go from here? Standing at the crossroads of life and making a decision in various hard and when standing alone. Alone, sheltered with agonizing pain that doesn't hurt. At a moment, a voice calls my name. A voice of understanding, a voice that almost caused me to go insane. But I listened to this deep baritone, clear as thunder, clear as the crisp sounds of a trumpet, blowing soft notes. I heard it sound at the crossroad, but where do I go from here? So at this point, I'd like to stop at this point and continue, just in short, because that's what we're talking about. That's what's important.
It is, yes.
It's not so much getting into it as a whole, but it's understanding for our audience to understand your question, your thoughts. Where do you go from here?
That's a good question.
This is a podcast. This is a show. We are entertaining you with something what we have been through and where we're going to. You see, and we don't ask a question. At times we do ask a question. That's how come we continue to write. Where do we go from here? So even as we leave this station, this place, where do we go from here? So with this and this question, this statement, ask yourself the question, where do you go from here? And that's what's important.
Yeah, it's very important because, again, and see, with this particular question, where do we go from here? Everybody has their own individual answer. Okay, I don't think anybody has the same answer. I mean, again, I think that one of the things people have to realize, especially in relationships, I think a lot of relationships fail because you feel that because you're in a relationship, you have to always be in lockstep, that whatever this person does, you with that person and you're moving in that direction, not realizing that we all need time alone. We all need time for reflection. Because again, and it's not selfish to think about self, because one of the things that I found as I look back on my life and I look back on this year is that it is important to understand self and understand that there is a reason, a reason for self-reflection and self-care, self-examination. And I'd like to read, this is a quote from Iella Van Zandt, and she says here, "The journey into self-love and self-acceptance must begin with self-examination. Until you take the journey of self-reflection, it is almost impossible to grow or learn in life." Iella Van Zandt. I want to just read that again because I want that to really just sink into to your consciousness and you to take this in your journey. And again, I repeat, this is from Iella Van Zandt. And it says here, the journey into self-love and self-acceptance must begin with self-examination. Until you take the journey of self-reflection, it is almost impossible to grow or learn in life. Okay, so basically what she's saying is that, learning is lifelong. As long as you are on this earth, you are learning whether you want to or not. And I think the most important thing is to have focused self-reflection. I've been on this platform for over a year now. I've been working with Queen Ruby Shivers and Queen Sheila Brown Bird and Lula Salvador and Juanita McClure. And these are women who have asked me to come on and be the host of the Unapologetic Amateur Looking for Experts. And again, every time that I come before you, villagers, for me, it's exciting because it's a new adventure. I mean, I won't tell you what kind of day I had today because there were things that were planned that didn't go the way they were planned. And I found myself sort of reaching out to other people to facilitate this particular program. And I'm glad that I have people who can help me with that. But the point I'm making is that I am an advocate of healthy aging and lifelong learning. And I think the two go together, because I don't think you have one without the other. Because I think, again, for myself, I only buy one newspaper a week. I used to buy papers Monday through Sunday. But what I do now, Brother Ron, I get the Sunday New York Times. And one of my favorite sections is in the Metro section. And it's an article where they follow one person from the morning to the evening. And it just shows what they do when they get up during the day and that kind of how they end their night. And I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated about how people fill their day. What do they do with their day? Because we all have 24 hours and minus the time you sleep, but we all have a day to fill. And that's why myself, in the morning, I lie in bed and I meditate thinking about what my day is going to be. Now, when it's Monday, I know I have to be here in the studio. And so I think about how I want this day to run. And even sometimes when I'm not doing this, I have an agenda. And sometimes I might have 10 things I want to do. Maybe I might only do 5. But I have a plan for each day because I don't know about you, but I just can't be at random. I can't what's next? I don't like to live my life that way,
It's interesting. And see, for me, I'm at random. See, I don't plan. I don't have a
God
schedule.
Bless you.
I fit in when the time and opportunity permits. It's what's important. And that's what's important for everyone. Everybody doesn't plan. Mm-hmm. But then you look at those who plan something and it doesn't work.
Yes, right.
And then in the same token, you can do something at random and it doesn't work. But the bottom line is with that is how many people get frustrated.
That's true.
Rather than take ownership and said, okay, I'm on this journey. Mm-hmm. I had planned something. It didn't work. Mm-hmm. So what's your next step?
Yes, sir.
Your next step should always be in your thoughts. What am I going to do? And back to original, where do I go from here?
That's right.
And that's what's important.
Yeah.
So again, I'm at random. You can call me. I'm saying, okay, fine. What do you want to do?
He's flexible, and I found that he's flexible. But again, I think, but whatever you do, and I know again because you're a creative person. Sometimes people don't understand that creativity sometimes takes place in solitude.
That's right.
Sometimes you can just be looking out the window.
That's right.
And a poem will come to you.
That's right.
A poem will come to you. And the thing is, they say that all artists should have a notepad near the bed because you might wake up in the middle of the night and say, you know what, let me write that down. Because if you don't, that thought is going to pass you by.
Absolutely.
And you'll never capture that.
Absolutely. It happens all the time. Right. As a matter of fact, the other night, I before I went to bed, I started on something, and then I said, well, I started getting sleepy, so I went to bed, lay down. I lay down, I was there maybe 2 or 3 minutes, all of a sudden something hit me. I got back up and done it again. I've done this 2 or 3 times, but then I realized, you come to a point where you say, okay, let me stop.
Yes, yeah.
But what happens is that you don't forget what you have started because you can always go back and rebuild on that which you had put down.
That's true.
But you can't put anything down or start on something if you never started anything. And that's what's important, you know. So again, you know, when something hit me, and you're absolutely correct, you have to write it down, even if it's on a piece of paper, on a note of something. You know, back in the day, even way back when, people used to take scroll paper,
That's right,
leaf,
whatever,
on a tree or anything, tissue paper.
Whatever.
They wrote something because they was writing down their thought. And that thought is one thing. It could be a word, it could be an image, it could be something. But they wrote it down and then came back and built on it. And if I may, it's the exact same thing. Matter of fact, poetry, everyone who creates something is an artist.
Yes, they are.
Poetry, rap,
understand
singing,
that.
music.
Understand that.
That's what's important. A painter does the exact same thing. He or she just gets up and look at something, a wall, something plain, or whatever the case may be, and they just do it.
That's right.
And then they start with something. Even as a child, and I'm quite sure everyone online looking at us, even from this perspective, your kids have kids, you know, kids in school, you know.
That's right, right.
They drawing.
That's right.
You know, the teacher, somebody give them a piece of paper, they just put something down.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, that paper's on the wall. Matter of fact, I was in Virginia, and my great nephew, you know, done the exact same thing. So his mother had all his pictures on the counter, around the counter.
Yeah, of course.
But to him, he created something. And what's important is that that same creation is that ultimately somewhere, sometime will end up in a museum someplace.
That's right.
And that's where you see calendars now with kids' artwork.
Yeah.
Has no rhyme or reason. It's not about how perfect it should be.
No.
It's about the creativity of the individual.
Oh, man, that's such a good point. I got 2 points that I want to throw back to you. Number one, children are uninhibited. They don't think about if this is good or bad. It reminds me of the joke I heard some time ago. It's this young girl. She's in art class, and she's drawing this picture, and she's so much into it, man. Yeah, she got her tongue to her side because she's just drawing this picture. And the teacher comes over to her, and she says, what are you drawing? You really seem into it. She said, I'm drawing a picture of God. She said, you're drawing a picture of God? She said, yeah. And the teacher says, well, that's kind of hard to do because nobody knows what God looks like. The little girl said, they'll know when I finish this picture. So what happens is that, you know, she's determined to do this. And I think that I think one of the things, and my second point is that I don't care how old you are. I don't care if you're 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Never lose the child inside, okay? Never lose that playfulness. I mean, just be uninhibited, be unabandoned. I mean, you don't have to read your poems or whatnot, you know, but just have that ability to be open-minded and not be so self-conscious. Many of us, we have great books in ourselves. We have great stories and whatnot, but we keep on thinking about, well, what are people going to think? You know, is this stupid? I mean, but my question is it fun? Is it fun, that song that you wrote? I remember, I'll never forget, I was back in the day, my son, you know, he was maybe like 10 or 11, and when we were walking the street, you know, just talking and whatnot. And he stops in the middle of the street, Ron, and he says, Dad, I want to be a singer. And I said, well, that's good, you know, because I'm thinking I told him I'd be right at 9. I said, well, that's good. And I said, well, you know, I got a question, can you sing? He said, yeah, I can sing, and I write my own songs. I said, and I'm thinking like Jackson 5 steps. Right. I mean, I'm thinking I got a dynasty right here. And I said, well, you know, could you maybe sing me one of your songs? He said, yeah, I'll be glad to. Right. And he sang this song at the top of his lungs, man. He had the emotions and whatnot, and he was going down, and I'm looking at him, and that song was terrible. It was terrible. But I said, you know, we all have to start somewhere.
That's right.
And thankfully for me and for him, he didn't continue with that idea. but he went on to do other great things. But the point I'm making is that, he shared it with me. He wasn't like thinking about, well, is my dad going to laugh at me? Is he going to think I'm silly? No. This is what he felt from his heart. He put it out there. And the thing about creativity is the fact that you can go on. You can go do it again. This could be draft 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5. And sometimes, I don't know about you, but sometimes when I get a poem, it comes fully. I get the beginning, the middle, and the end because I don't write a whole lot of poetry. So when I grab that idea, I can milk it, but I got to grab it.
Right.
Because if I don't grab it, man, it's going to pass me by. And you're going to get it.
And that's interesting because, again, that's what this is all about.
I think so.
Creativity.
Yes.
A journey. Yeah. It doesn't mean that you're going to be perfect, whatnot, but like you said, you got to start someplace.
You got to start someplace.
You may not ultimately get to, let's just say, the next step, but at least you can look back and say, I started something.
That's right.
Because even as a child, and if I may,
please.
there's a scripture that says, to be as innocent as a child, which is true. Twice a child, once an adult.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean that because you're an adult, you act ridiculously like a child. But it's the innocent inside of
boundaries.
you. Exactly. It's the innocent inside. And that's what's important. So no matter how you look at it, it's a start and stop.
That's right.
You have to know when to start and when to stop. And sometimes you may start something and stop now, but years later, it will come back to you. I remember sometimes I think about it. I started taking a music lesson because I was always fascinated with the saxophone.
Okay.
So in 1985, I went and took lessons. I was there a week. And
look at you.
But I think about it now. Had I not continued to continue that, where will I be?
That's a good point. That's a good point. Because a lot of times we start things and we don't finish, but sometimes we can start something and we can go back to it.
Right.
Because I know a lot of people in their retirement, they went back to things that they love to do. But, again, I know when I was working, I started as a college administrator. I did that for about 30 years. And then I started a career as a college professor. I did that for about 30 years. And then I retired. And now I do articles on black music. I do this particular program and that kind of thing. But I'm still growing, I'm still doing what I love. And I think that one of the things that you have to live a good life, a healthy life, is to identify your passions and deal with your passions. If your passion is writing, write. If your passion is reading, read. If it's acting, whatever, you're never too old to do that. A lot of times, and I hate people to say that, like, I'm too old for that. What do you mean you're too old for that? What are you talking about?
And you're absolutely correct. You have to have a desire.
Yes, yeah.
Every human being, in nature as a whole, has a desire.
That's right.
That individual, whatever the creation is, whatever animal, they have a desire to do something.
That's right.
It may be good or bad or indifferent, but it all depends on how one looks at it.
That's right.
But if you have a desire, you start it, you create it. And here's something else that I want to tie into.
Yeah, please.
Negativity, because you were speaking on that, in essence, worrying about what somebody else said, being a critic. Well, actually, if somebody's a critic, you take that and turn it into a positive. When you criticize yourself, you turn that into a positive. You have to ask yourself, why did I do this? Why do I think this way? Why do I feel this way? Because one of the most important things, freedom is not isolated. Negativity is isolated because you're isolating your own freedom through negative thinking, negative self-isolation. Well, they talked to them. They did this. No. You say, you know what? I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you done that. Now you open up the door to freedom by taking that negativity, turn it into something positive. And here, as we know, and those who are our audience, if you haven't heard, one person's trash is somebody else's treasure.
That's right.
And even as of this moment we're speaking, around the world, people in other cultures, far less than what you have today in this country, take what you throw away, they turn into treasure. And you have to think about Are you trash or you treasure?
That's right.
Because if you look at yourself as trash, then you will be trash because you won't do anything, you won't create anything. But if you look at yourself that I'm trash, but I'm not held hostage, I will be free to create my treasure. And that's what's important. Whatever that may be. Poetry, writing, singing, whatever.
And realize that sometimes what you want to do may take time. I'm reading a book called "Things That Money Can't Buy" by Robert Sherman, and he says that one of the things that money can't buy is actually to master your craft. If you're a poet, how long did it take you to get to where you are? I mean, you have many books of collections of poetry. How long did that take? I knew that's not overnight. So again, the thing, a lot of times it takes time to be the best that you can be.
Right.
But in the meantime, you study, you practice your craft. You might write 10 poems, but only maybe 5 will be what you want to share with the public at that time.
Right.
But I find for myself, whatever I write, I know I don't throw anything away because I might be able to go back and say, well, you know what? I don't like this line, but you know what? If I switch this line here and I put this line here and I add something more to it, then now this is ready for publication.
Absolutely. I do the exact same thing. Matter of fact, even last night, I look at all these pieces I have something written on and I want to throw it away. I said, no, because
don't throw it away.
I need to do it. And that's what's important.
Yes.
The best of the best artists, regardless of what area of instrument, what their creativity may be, you look at them from their perspective.
Right.
They have pieces of anything, everything notes. And if I may, in short,
Please.
when I was working at AT&T, one thing I've learned with the scientists,
Yes.
right? You go into the room at that time, I used to clean. I was in janitorial work.
Okay.
Go in the office, and I think the first couple of days or whatever, you go in there, you want to move this, and I was scolded. I was, don't touch nothing.
Whoa, okay.
Because each scientist knew exactly where everything was and what they needed. To me, it was a room full of mess.
Yeah, right.
They had books from the floor.
Let me straighten this out, right?
Exactly. They had books from the floor, papers from the floor, literally to the ceiling.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But one of the most important things we couldn't do outside, the only thing we could do was just clean a little area, empty the trash can.
That's it.
But I've learned from that. Every single piece in there was extremely important to them because you never know when you have to go back and look for notes or thoughts and everything else. Because the mind, as we all know, or pretty much, is a terrible thing to waste and lose. You see?
It is, and I know for myself, my writing desk is really a butcher block table.
Right.
It's big because I like to have something there. I got some books there. I got some notes there. I got my Kindle here. I got my laptop there. And sometimes I'm moving from one to another. But again, I have to have a landscape because if I have the landscape, I can just sort of look at different things. And I think for myself is that I have to make sure that whatever I have is on that desk because I know for myself, if I don't have it there, I'm getting up and going back and forth, and that's not productive. A lot of people, that's where procrastination comes in. You sit down and then you're looking at the TV. Well, I need to dust that.
Right.
No, you don't. And then you sit down, then you're looking at the window. That window needs to be clean. No. And then you're looking over here at the plant. Right. I should do something with that plant. And so what happens, you're moving all back and forth and you don't get anything done.
Right.
And then you wonder, wow, I didn't get anything done today. Well, no, because you weren't focused. And I think what I do, especially going into the year 2025, I've really, and I've always been doing it, but even more now, I'm looking at my passions. I'm looking at my intention, and I'm looking at my focus because these are the things that is going to really get you to do what you do. And just one thing before I go to you, my brother, I was watching Tyler Perry's new movie, The 688, which is about women in World War II. Right. Now, I don't know about you, but a lot of people are down on Tyler Perry, telling me, hey, he's bad here, bad there. Let me just say one thing. I'm going on record as saying this, Tyler Perry gets the job done. Okay, he has a contract with Netflix to do movies, do TV shows. So in a span of less than a couple of years, he's done 2 movies, he's done 2 TV shows and whatnot. And people make me laugh because you can criticize Tyler Perry, but my question to you is, when was the last movie that you made? When was the last?
Or even wrote something, or even read something, or even done something, or created something.
Yeah. So this man is doing his job. Leave him alone. You don't have to watch it. You know, it's still a semi-free country, and you have the power of the dollar. As a matter of fact, you don't have to have Netflix and that because you got to pay for it. But the point I'm making is that don't knock the other man unless you're doing something. If you don't like what he's doing, then give us an alternative. That's all. You know, because again, I mean, I really thought that was if not his best movie, one of the best movies that he's done, and I think that it was a history lesson that we were not taught in school, and we never will be, because the one of the main characters is a character, Captain Charity Adams, and she is a real woman, and she has a book out of her own. But as you go through the story, and at the end of the story, they show you some of the women who went through this, who are the real people, like the Hidden Figures movie, right. You know, that kind of thing. And it was really encouraging to me because, again, it's a piece of our history that we're not taught in school. And I found out more so than anything, man, we were miseducated. Talk about Christopher Columbus discovered America. Talk about the Pilgrims sat down with the Indians and they had a nice dinner. I mean, it's not true. But if you took a test at that particular time, and if the question was, did Christopher Columbus discover America, you had to write yes. Because if you didn't write yes, then it would be wrong. And you didn't have any kind of backup because they didn't want to hear the backup. The teacher said that Christopher Columbus discovered America, and you better put that down. Because if you don't put that down, then you're wrong, and you're going to fail that test. And all through our history, and that's why I find for myself, I'm discovering so many nuggets of information that was not told to me. I tell you, man, I've been through public schools, I've been to college and whatnot. I think a lot of my education was miseducation. I want my money back.
And you know, it's interesting. And if I may piggyback on that, because you're absolutely correct. And over the years, even recently, I've learned just what you said. Because teachers and professors, I've learned from me. This is me now. I don't want to take anything from my audience or anyone else. No, this is from my perspective. Is that there's a lot of teachers and professors who doesn't know. They learn from you. You see, especially ones who are writing their thesis. When they're going for their PhD, they tell you to write an assignment, write an essay. And then they come back and mark it up and whatever case and say that's wrong. But I always say this. College may not be for everybody, but an education, no matter how you get it, where you get it from, is extremely important. Because before they had colleges, how did our ancestors, how did ancestors learn? You know, you can go all the way back in cotton fields and before cotton fields, way back in ancient time, they were brilliant. So it's only when you do your research
that's right.
to justify your understanding on something, then you can come back and challenge any teacher or any professor. Even though the professor or the teacher might say, no, that's wrong, you didn't do what I say. Now, see, here's a key point.
Yeah, please.
You didn't do what I said you to do. Do it my way. Well, then you have to learn to understand, was your way truly the right way? That's right. Did you truly understand what you told me? The only way you can, in my opinion, understand that a teacher or professor done their homework is when no matter what assignment they give you, they know if you read it, done it, and followed because they themselves read, done their research, no matter how you look at it, so they know. So it's the exact same thing. Is when somebody want to challenge you, what you've done, what you learned, where you come from. Well, that ain't right. Well, how you gonna tell me that's not right? That's right. I mean, that's what I've learned.
Yeah. And what research have you done? I find for myself that, I tell this story many times because it's true. When I started my teaching career, they would give me this big anthology. They would have white writers and they would have black writers. And most of my colleagues all they taught was the white writers.
Right.
I'm looking at the black writers, so I'm teaching the white writers and the black writers together. And again, and I'm also doing what they call independent research.
Right.
And I'm doing independent research because I want to give my students as much as I can.
Right.
But they were content just to teach the white writers as if the black writers didn't exist. And the thing that's so sad to me is the fact that you don't know. You know, you're supposed to be an English professor, but you don't know the full scope of English literature, and you don't care. Right. And that's the tragedy.
Right.
And that's why you'll have young kids. I remember never forgetting one of my classes. I told the students, I was excited. I said, the next portion of the class, I'm going to concentrate on poetry.
Right.
You know, we're going to study poetry. Right. And one of the students told me, Professor Benjamin, I hate poetry. Oh, you hate poetry. And when kids tell me they hate something, my question is, have you tried it?
Right.
That's like my son telling me, I hate spinach.
Right.
Have you had spinach?
Right.
Well, no, but I hate, no. Look, you say you hate poetry. He said, yeah, I hate poetry because I can't understand it. Listen to me. If you could understand it, would you like it better? It's still poetry. Listen to me. Do you like rap music? I love rap music. Rap music is poetry. What? Yeah, rap music is poetry set to a beat. Can you understand that? Right. Can you say Common?
Right.
Can you say KRS-One?
Right.
Can you say LL Cool J?
That's right.
You know, and so what happened is when it becomes clear to people what it is, it allows them to have the appreciation that, you know what, maybe I've been closed-minded. Maybe I should expand. You know, one of the things that I'm going to do in a few minutes is talk about music as literature. Hey, music as poetry.
That's right.
How about that?
That's right. That's right.
You thought music was just to swing and sway to, you know.
That's
what
right.
about music as poetry? What about music as something that you can read? Yeah. How about that?
That's right.
You know, you ever had that light bulb moment? You know, the light bulb over your head and whatnot. What does that mean? Idea.
That's right.
Idea. I remember when I got halfway smart in high school, when I was in a class. You know, at this point it was all boys high school, which is good for me because I wasn't distracted by the girls. Right. So I'm sitting in class and the teacher asked a question. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting in the back with my boys, and the white kid raised his hand and answered the question. Right. I said, whoa. And then the teacher asked another question. Another white boy raised his hand and answered the question. I'm looking up saying, man, boy, these white folks is smart, man, you know. And I went home. I mean, I would carry my books home, put them down, and then I would carry them back to school. I put the covers on them and whatnot, but I would never open the book. And then one day, I guess I was bored. Nothing was on TV. At that time, you only had the 4 or 5 channels. Right. And I'm looking at the book, and Brother Ron, you know what? The answers are in the book. Who knew? Right. It blew my mind. The answers are in the book. And so I'm going to the school the next morning. I'm fired up now because I have the answers. So teacher asked the question, I raised my hand. He ignored me. Right. I asked another question, I raised my hand again. He ignored me. Again, I raised both my hands. He said, Terry, look, I know you're trying to be a comedian and whatnot. I said, no, please, give me a chance. Right. And so he asked the question. I answered the question. Right. I felt so good. My boys looked at me like, what you messed up our thing back here in the back of the room, you know. And so now I'm full of fire now. I'm answering 2 or 3 questions in class. I must be a genius. But the point I'm making is that sometimes it's as obvious on the nose of your face that the answers are in the book, doggone it. You know? There was an old joke some time ago. It was very insulting to black people. It said, if you want to hide something from a black person, put it in the book. I never liked that, but I understand what it is, you know? Mm-hmm. You know, because they think we don't read. We do read.
And you know, it's interesting. It's funny because I had a professor, and I used to raise my hand, and I realized he was ignoring me.
Yes.
And ultimately, I had to do an assignment, do a paper. Mm-hmm. And my assignment was in reference to a biblical scripture.
Okay.
And so I wrote I read the scripture. I understood the scripture because I used to teach Sunday school.
Of course.
So after that, I put my response down. Because he didn't know, in my honest opinion, he had a colleague come in and examine my work to tell me that's not right. You see, so that's what's important when you do your research, when you know, based on when somebody challenged you to tell you something, your response is, and I always use this as your ammunition.
That's right.
Your ammunition is your answer.
That's right.
It's always in the question. Because if somebody challenge you, they want you to incriminate yourself so they can have the upper hand. And then sure, it's just like the memorandum rights.
Yeah.
A police officer stopped you and in court they said, anything you say can and will be
held
used
against you. Yes.
Anything you say will be.
That's right.
And so if a person doesn't think about, and if you never done your research, you will have no ammunition. So what happens, you start running off at the mouth to try to justify something.
Get yourself
and
in a lot of trouble.
Somebody says, you didn't do your homework. That's wrong.
That's right.
Most important, and that's what education is to me.
That's right.
Do your research,
right.
even inside yourself, no matter how far back you go or how much you do a research in, but do research on something.
Oh man, that's beautiful.
No matter how you look at it.
Yeah, and then a lot of times you do research and you become an expert on that subject.
Absolutely.
Because my whole thing, I've always been to black music. Black music has always been more to me just something to listen to the point like I do a daily music blog.
Right.
And it's called a soul music prescription, song by song, album by album. And what I do, I take an album and I look at all the songs in the album and I write an essay on each one of those songs. Make a long story short, I had the idea from this like for 2020. And now because I've been doing it for so long, I refined it to the point where I can say, well, you know what? I know what I'm doing right now to the point where I understand that for me, music is literature.
Right.
And I can make a case for that.
Right.
Because I have many essays to support what I'm saying. And my whole thing is I tell everybody, when you're speaking, it's always to speak with reference, okay? Because I might say something, but then I'll back it up. Like, for example, we talk about Kwanzaa. I had the privilege of listening to an interview on WBAI with Malana Ron Karanga, who's the creator of Kwanzaa. He created Kwanzaa in 1966. And he, in a recent interview with Imhotep Gary Bird, and this is a beautiful quote, and again, write this down if you can, villagers. Malana Ron Karanga, the creator of Kwanzaa, says, and I quote, "We are American by habit, African by choice." Okay? American by habit. Taking all the stuff that they tell us and we just regurgitate that and say, oh yeah, if I work hard, I get ahead and that kind of stuff. But African by choice. See, that's the choice. One of the things that, where do we go from here? I think that we need to have a more Afrocentric mindset. Okay, because again, as they describe the American society to me, that dog-eat-dog thing, that the billionaire has everything and the little people have nothing, and the billionaires come together and they want to control everything. They don't want to give you anything. And that's like the people, if you're in like a dark cave and somebody throws down a ladder, okay, and we're all trying to get out of this tunnel underground, and they throw down the ladder and we climb up the ladder, and then this person gets up to the top of the ladder and he pulls the ladder so no one else can go up. I mean, I see that as selfish. I see that as something that is wrong. And the thing is, we live in a situation now where we have the billionaires taking everything and leaving nothing for somebody else. And that's a sin, if you ask me,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I always go to biblical.
Please.
It says, lift someone else up better than yourself.
I like that.
So in
I
other
like
words,
that.
as you just indicated, as you climb up and then you cut the ladder to keep me from coming up or not pulling me up,
That's right.
then what's going to happen when you fall? You expect somebody to catch you. And if I move out of the way, now all of a sudden, now you're like an egg splattered.
That's right.
And now
That's
you're
right.
mad because nobody helped you. But the question is, did you help somebody else? It doesn't matter what you have, your creativity, but can you help somebody in their struggle? Remember, as we was talking earlier, as innocent as a child.
Yes.
A child is
yes.
crying, a child is struggling. But then there's somebody there to help a child.
That's right.
When
That's
you
right.
become an adult, it's still our duties as human, brothers and sisters, to help one another. It doesn't matter, because the moment you take on selfishness, you're being negative, you're being trifling. And that's what's important. That's where freedom does not hang around. Freedom is not isolated. Freedom is what can I do to help somebody? Because one of the sayings is what goes around comes around. What goes up will come down.
That's right.
You see, you may rise up financially, you may rise up in material things, but what would you do? What's going to happen if you have nothing to fall back on? The most important thing is knowing where you come from. So even if I rise up, I can come back and start writing something else. I can write poetry. I can sing. And if I made this last piece, because before there was music, there were lyrics.
Yes.
Those lyrics was in the moment of what you was thinking and feeling. That's why, for example, when you look at Africans or Native Indians, et cetera, they hummed, they had hymns in a moment of their journey. Their journey was not necessarily always negative.
No, it wasn't.
But it was
It
in
wasn't.
a moment of what they was cultivating.
Yes.
Are you cultivating yourself, your thinking? Are you cultivating in a group? Do you get together with others to collaborate each other? How can we lift each other
You're dropping some
up?
gems right now, brother. Yeah, please.
And that's what's important. And I think we had talked about it. I know you didn't present it yet, but that's in reference to unity.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
How do you unify yourself with others if you don't unify yourself with yourself? Because I always use this term, me, myself, and I. You see,
Very lonely.
so
very, very lonely there.
me, which is 2 letters, without the I, which started the me.
Yeah.
You know, and self, which is more than one. So it takes more than one to help one to create.
And before we close out, I want to go back to that thing with unity, because when we talk about Kwanzaa, we're in that phrase, umoja is to strive for and maintain unity in the family, community, nation, and race. And this is from the 7 principles. And you said you had something to add to that?
Yes, and I like to share this. We always laugh at this because even this evening, when I was called upon to ask to,
he was called upon
co-host. I said, I think I have something. I might have something. So I was able to put something together. And so, if I may, let me
Please.
just read what I put together.
Okay.
Unity. Many parts of one body. The true value of a tight bond. A close niche working together for a common purpose. Collaboration brings a harmonious pleasure, a spice with various tones of the mind. Where communication speaks volumes and the outcome bursts with action. Building a bridge towards one goal is if only each one believes in the value of trust.
Yes.
To trust is to believe without chaos, leaving many in a dismantled state of a bewildering future without a forward path. One cannot see the legacy of his own from whence he cometh. Unity, the earth moves in a manner hosting its surrounding parts that represent all of nature's best ingredients as it shifts through a tight screen mesh. Everything into one without the loss of many. Unity is what's missing. In the state of African American culture, a departing sea, shattered earthquakes, and a stormy attitude shifting an eruption of volcanic ash. Men love as brothers, endure their sisters. There is no respect among our people as many years ago. Through tumultuous times that brought forth our legacy, which our ancestors laid down their lives for freedom today. Unity. What is it? And how would you define its relationship fraternally? The old Jays said, we must have unity. But does it start today? Brother, my sister, when will we collaborate with respect in greeting one another as we were born to be?
Oh, that's unity. That's unity. And the thing is that, you know, we have our villagers who are called in. We have Robert Cabestock, Dina Robinson, Rashida Johnson. We have Sheila Bird. We have T.Q. Devon, Wakia Lewis Cotton. You know, these are the people who have been watching this show, and they've been sort of riding with us for quite some time. And before we end, just two things that I want to do. The first thing is we talked about music. And I was telling my brother here that I see music as literature. And I want to read this. This is from the poet Curtis Mayfield. And, you know, when you look at the music of Curtis Mayfield, I look at the titles, and the titles tell a poem. For example, People Get Ready, Keep On Pushing, We're Rolling On, We're a Winner. Right? That's a poem right there.
That's right.
And looking at his music, this is from 1967. It says here, we're a winner. And never let anybody say, boy, you can't make it, because a feeble mind is in your way. No more tears do we cry, and we have finally dried our eyes, and we're moving on up, moving on up. Lord have mercy, we're moving on up, moving on up. We're living proof that's all's alert, that we're true from the good black earth, and we're a winner. And everybody knows the truth. We just keep on pushing, like our leaders tell you to. And at last, the blessed day has come, and I don't care where you come from, and we're moving on up. Lord have mercy, we're moving on up. Hey, hey, we're moving on up. Lord have mercy, we're moving on up. I don't mind leaving here to show the world we have no fear, because we're a winner, and everybody knows the truth. We got to keep on pushing, like your leaders tell you to. And at the last, that blessed day has come. I don't care where you came from. We're just going to move on up. Lord have mercy, we're moving on up. We just keep on pushing. We're a winner. Lord, baby, everybody, hey, we're moving on up. And that's from Brother Curtis Mayfield. And the announcement that I wanted to share with you that my brother and I, we are developing a program that's going to be here on this platform every Thursday and Sunday. And it's called Poetically Speaking. And what we did today, you know, we're going to have poets come on. He's going to read his poem. I'm going to read some of my poetry, and we're going to discuss that. We're going to have a segment in the program where we go to music as literature, because I truly believe that there is a message in our music. There's a message in our music that has to carry on from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, you know? And I think that we can't lose that thread of our history. We can't lose that thread of our self-determination. And again, I thank you for hanging with us. I thank you for your encouragement to the program Unapologetic Amateur Looking for Experts, you know. And again, I wish you a happy new year. And whatever you have in your mind to do, now's the time to do it. Stop holding back, because, you know, we need your gifts. We need the mindset that, you know, the reason I do this, the reason why I'm always about black people, because I do believe that we can get back to the fullness of our greatness. It's always been there. It hasn't gone away. It's just that we got a little discouraged, you know, because some things didn't work out the way that we thought that it would. We got to the point where, you know what's the use? And I'm saying to you, next year, Apologetic Amateur Looking for Experts, we're going to have some new features. We're going to have people coming in, zooming in from Africa. We're going to have publishers. We're going to have editors. We're going to have book makers and book writers, because again, we can do this. We can write books. We can write poems. We can make movies. Everything that we want other people to do for us, we can do for ourselves. We don't need Hollywood anymore. We have Tubi. And we have, and again, I mean, you have to understand that, when the movies come out, maybe they might not be to your liking, and that's okay. But at least we're doing this. We have the means of production. We can make the movies. We can make the books. We don't need anybody to validate us. We don't need anybody to say, well, Ron, you're a poet. Terry, you're an author. I don't need anybody to tell me that, because I validate myself to the point where what I offer to you, especially in terms of the creative realm, is a gift. What my brother gave to you today is a gift from his creativity. And the thing I like about my brother right here is that he doesn't mind being challenged. We joke back and forth about I always calling him when I need him. Yeah, it was true, because I know he'll come through. I work with a lot of people, but again, there's very few people who really, really come through to the point that I know I can count on them. And so I got about a couple of minutes left. Ron, would you like to say anything before we go?
Really, you had said everything. Mm-hmm. And what's important is a continuation for each one to think, not just listen to. And we hope and pray that you have received something, some understanding, whether it's one piece, all of it, or something. But the point is, did you receive something? And the question is, what are you going to do? Because we're here, we're trying to put something together, but we also want to connect with you. That's what unity is. Let's collaborate. Send in your message. Send in your comments. Let's talk. Let's get together. Because, again, there are so many out there who are looking for this opportunity. Our door will be open to help you, to guide you, to direct you, to support you in your journey as you move forward with your creativity.
And that's very important. So again, especially when we do our program is called Poetically Speaking, and that'll be on Thursday and Sunday, every Thursday and Sunday, Poetically Speaking with Ron McCray and Terry Benjamin. And what we want to do is we want to invite you, the audience. If you write poetry, we want you to come on. We want you to zoom in. You can come and be in the studio with us. But we want you to share your creativity, because in the final analysis, that's what's going to save us. Because again, whether we sing it, whether we recite it, is important. And I Ron, I want, especially on the Thursday and Sunday, I want this to really be a place for spoken word. Right. I want people to be, and again, it's no judgment. Okay, because what comes from your heart, for me, is pure. It's pure. It's no judgment. Again, and so what we'll do is that every Thursday and Sunday we'll have a theme, and we're in the course of the hour with you, we'll build on the theme. He'll read some poetry. I'll read some poetry. I'll have maybe things from other people. Because again, we got to talk about Nikki Giovanni, Sonia Sanchez, Langston Hughes, and Mary Baraka, my brother Wade Hudson. I hope to have him on the program, to actually read some of his poetry from himself. But the point I'm making is that we have a platform here. We have a platform. We have a business that's run from this platform, and we want your support. And so with that being said, we wish you the best. We wish you a happy new year. We wish you to realize all the dreams that you have for yourself and for your family. So on that note, we will see you soon.
Take care.